All right, folks. So as I mentioned at the top of the show here, I wanted to show you the Nova Kakhovka Dam. I've got to get my Aussie tongue around these Ukrainian words. It's a bit tricky. Let me show you the video that's come out about this. So there's a bit of drone footage there as they're tracking from the southern side to the north side. There you can see this is an absolute total catastrophe. This is maybe one of the biggest man-made disasters that's happened in the last 20 years. And when I show it to you on the map, you'll see why quickly, but you can see what's happening. So they blew the dam at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a very specific reason why they've blown that dam. So there's a bunch of people out there saying that the Russians did it, but then there's a whole bunch of people out there saying the Ukrainians did it. And I think what they're saying is, Russia didn't blow up, false flag, right? Russia didn't blow up its own Nord Stream pipeline, and they didn't blow up the dam either. But actually, I disagree. That is a Russian operation for sure. Because last time when they were in this part of the world, and it's down in the southern part of Ukraine in the Kherson region, last time they were down here and we were encroaching into this part of the world, we could see that the dam was rigged to blow. So I've been in the last couple of days watching a TV show on Netflix called The Days, and it's about the Fukushima nuclear disaster and what actually happened. And I was thinking that that's probably, I got to the last episode last night, and I thought that's probably the biggest natural, or the biggest human-made disaster. It was caused by a natural disaster, right? It wasn't human-made, caused by an earthquake and the tsunami, of course. But I thought that's the biggest thing that we'll ever see in our lifetime. But I think this, it's not a nuclear disaster, but the ecological disaster that it will create will affect literally hundreds of thousands of people for decades to come. And it is just, I don't know what Bright Spark thought that this was a good idea. And it's like these Russians don't seem to understand the third and fourth magnitude of like results. When you do something like this, there's 3 or 4 or 10 things that happen downstream from this that are going to be caused as a result of this. And it's like they don't fully understand. What do you think, Ed, when you see this? It's like an absolute tragedy, man.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd like to know, what's the logic behind it? I'm sure they had some reason for doing it. Is it meant as a distraction? Is it meant to wipe out a key, production area of food for the Ukrainian people?
That's a good question. Let me show you. I'll share my screen here, and I've got a couple of maps I can show you. So the first one is I'll show you the deep state map. So this is the dam just here, and I'm just going to be careful with my mouse because she runs away from me. So this is the dam as you look at it right there. And if I can swap it all out.
Okay, so it's on the border there. It's on a river that borders the two countries.
No, so on the southern part of Ukraine, that's where my mouse is there on the southern part of the map, on the bottom of the map. What we're looking at is the occupied territories, and the Russians blew all the bridges way back when they took the ground in that part of the world as well. Why isn't the satellite map working? It's the default map, the satellite map. So I'll show you here on Google Maps because I've got it ready.
Okay.
It's a bit easier to see.
Yeah.
So the disposition of the troops is what I was wanting to show you there, so you can see. I just won't zoom all the way in. So the Russians are occupying the southern part of Ukraine here into Crimea. So here is where they're all dug in on this side of the river, and the Ukrainians took back this part of Kherson, you remember, probably about 9 months ago. So the Russians were in here, they came out of Crimea and took all of this land. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is there was a series of bridges there, and they just crossed the bridges. And then when the Ukrainians counterattacked against them, they took back this part, and the Russians blew all the bridges on the way out. And the dam was the last part of it to remain. So what it actually meant was when the counter-assault actually happens, the only way, because they were able to cross the dam here where my mouse is, so I'll just zoom into the screen. That's where it actually is there. And as I pull out, that was the final river crossing that they could do.
Okay.
And now what they have to do is they have to come up over Zaporizhia and come down here. That's the only way that they can actually do it.
But it is essentially on the border there between the Russian-occupied area.
Yeah, correct.
And the Ukrainian forces. So this is why I find it kind of curious, because normally in war, this kind of an event you would do. It's an act of desperation, right? It's because if if you have a high degree of confidence that you're going to take your objective, that you're going to take over that country, you don't want to destroy important infrastructure. You're going to want that infrastructure intact, right? So why?
It makes sense. It makes sense what you're saying, but the Google map has a bit more detail on it, right? And it kind of shows it a bit more. So the dam is just here, and if you look at the river is quite wide here, and you saw in the footage how wide the river is. You know, it's sort of 800 meters, 900 meters wide. If you go up further, the river is quite wide. But if you come down here, down the bottom near Kherson, where the river just here is actually, it's pretty narrow and it's easy to cross. So this bridge has been destroyed here. This one here has been destroyed as well. So the counter assault from Kherson, there's all the boats that were given to the Ukrainians. They were going to launch across the river here, but this is all marshy. So this is all marshlands here. And if you look at you can cross the river. It's only a couple of 100 meters wide there. It's not very big. But then getting across there's not many Russians dug in this part of the world. And if you look at the deep state map, there's not much. There's here in this small town here, and then just over in this other village just over here. And the reason for that is because there's just no way to get your heavy vehicles across there. That's like a straight up infantry crossing there.
All right, so is that the Dnieper River? Do you know?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, like you just said, most of that down there is marsh anyway, and they couldn't cross it anyway. So
why would they blow it?
Why would they flood it? It seems they defeat the purpose. I mean, what's the point if the Ukrainians can't come across through the marshes anyway?
Well, no, they can come across there, and that's what they've been waiting for, right? So they got the boats to get across there now. We know that because we've seen all the footage. And as the boats come across, then they can launch their infantry there. But if you go further upstream, look how wide the river actually is. Then if you look at Google Maps itself, you can see the river is only on the northern edge here where my mouse is, but you can also see that the river can extend as far as that. So what the Russians have done is they've blown the dam, and the river is going to be almost an impassable obstacle just because it's going to be too wide. And all of this down here is going to be flooded out. So, you know, that's quite wide when you look from there to there. It's probably a kilometer or so wide. So how are they going to get across there without artillery zeroing in on them, mortars zeroing in on them? So the reason I believe that the Russians blew the dam is to widen the river in this part of Ukraine to make the crossing next to impossible to actually get past.
So you think this is their way of like repelling this big offensive that everyone's been expecting?
Yes, that's exactly what I believe. And when you look at the propaganda where they say, oh, the Ukrainians blew up their own dam. Well, first of all, they couldn't have rigged the dam to actually do that because the Russians were in control of it. So it wasn't in control on our side. But it shows me that, you know, I don't get angry about many things in my life, Ed, and I don't get upset by much. But when I saw that yesterday, I was just like shaking my head thinking, and it just reminded me, war's a total failure of humanity. And both sides will do absolutely whatever is possible and necessary to win. And neither side is going to capitulate or give ground in any way, shape or form. And the ecological disaster that they created is not like anything that we've seen in a long time.
Well, let me flesh that out a little bit about the ecological part of this. If most of it was swampland anyway, how much I mean, it doesn't look like there are any serious major cities downstream.
I hope you're right. There's maybe a couple of villages that are going to get flooded out and whatnot. Remember the Chinese did that as well. They created those dams and it flooded all of those.
Yep.
And it wasn't just like half a dozen little villages with 30 people in it or something like that. They were like major cities that were underwater. And they did that all in the name of progress and destruction. So what we've got is the opposite of that. You know, we've got something being flooded. And the other thing that you're not sort of thinking about there, you think of they blow the dam and then the water tracks to the south. But what about all the water to the north? What about all the farms that were reliant on the river and all of that? Just it changes the whole ecology of that entire region when they've done that. You know, because it's been like that as long as the dam has been there for, 50, 60 years, whatever it is. And now it's all completely changed. And it's a failure of humanity, man. Like it's just desperation that they're going through.
Okay. I have to assume, I mean, that bridge was built at one point by men. Couldn't it be rebuilt?
Well, I assume so. I don't know enough about engineering or how they build dams to do something like that. But
I mean,
for sure, of course,
you know,
it was there once.
honestly, it didn't look like that. You know, compared to some of the dams that we have in America, it didn't look like that massive of a project. It looked like your standard concrete wall. It didn't look. It didn't look like some wonder of the
It's
world.
not like the giant Hoover Dam, that's like
Yeah.
800 meters tall and it's like 400 meters deep, sort of thing.
I mean, I suspect that the people at BlackRock could repair that.
Hey man, the Chinese have got some pretty wicked dam building technology as well.
There you go.
I'm thinking that they might be able to take care of it as well.
All it
But
takes, to sit down at that table, sign that BRICS agreement, man.
That's it, man. Bricks will fix everything. All we need is more bricks to fix the dam there, and we'll
There
be
you
good
go.
to go.
Yeah.
But
Don't come
if
to
you look up
America.
at the drone
Don't
footage
come to
here,
America. Don't come to America looking for money. We're just going to give you a loan, and then you're going to have a debt to repay. No, just go to China. They'll build it.
they'll just build the dam for you.
Yeah, they'll build it. Yeah.
They'll just bring in their teams of people and to do it.
Yeah.
As we're looking at this footage again, you can see as the drone kind of pans up. It's not kind of really doing it there. If I just fast forward a little bit, as the drone pans up, you can really see how wide the river is there, as it does a wide view of it. And I think that's the strategic, or it's not strategic. It's a tactical reason why they actually blew it.
Okay.
Is to simply do that.
So if I'm at the Pentagon, and I'm some junior analyst, because I don't know that much about this kind of thing. But if I'm a brand new guy sitting at the analyst table, I'd probably be thinking, well, to me, that would indicate a sign of weakness on the Russians, a sign that, okay, they think that this offensive could actually work, and they kind of tip their hand as to how strong they are. Maybe Russia is more afraid of this spring offensive than they let on. Because this seems like an act of desperation. This seems like something.
I think so. I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. And if you're the junior analyst, you'd be like, why on earth would you do something like that? That just doesn't make sense to me. And when I look at it in its totality, right, what I see is, if I was the battalion commander there, looking at defending that position, there's multiple different things that you could do. You can build defensive positions there. You can dig big ditches. You can create obstacles.